you mentioned there towards the end that you might be willing to consider some, but in terms of his list of tax breaks, are you opposed to those?
I don't see one on there I can support.
Okay.
You know, I didn't have children for props today on short notice, but I did have one bottle of water, and it wasn't very long ago the voters said bottled water wasn't going to be taxed. So I heard what the voters are saying, and since I couldn't get kids for props, a bottle of water was the best I could do.
She's got a prop today.
Well, I couldn't arrange, you know, my granddaughter wasn't available, and neither was my grandson.
Right, okay. Well, let me ask, can I ask a question about a specific one?
Sure.
Okay, I know that this is one that you've talked a little bit about before. This has to do with the partial repeal of the trade-in sales tax exemption on vehicles. The governor was just, and his staff was just saying this affects mainly fat cats who, you know, can afford big vehicles.
You know, that's really disappointing. One of the bright parts of the economy right now is that car sales are finally picking up. And if you take an 8% tax rate, which fits much of the state, that's $800 more to a more efficient, safer vehicle for families and businesses in the state. So you have a minimum $800 that goes away. We want to sell more fuel-efficient vehicles. We want businesses to be able to afford to buy them. This is just a huge disincentive. And then you look at agriculture, Eric. The trade-in value of farm machinery to update to become more efficient is bigger and bigger. The bulldozer that Senator Inslee used for a campaign prop, that's a trade-in in the construction industry or the timber industry. They need more efficient loaders and skidders, log trucks in that industry, the construction industry, track hose, backhoes, dump trucks. They all require trade-ins. That's why it's $90-some million. That is a disincentive for job creation. It really is.
Okay. What's an ordinary work pickup truck go for these days?
You know, right now, the typical, I'm looking around a little bit, I might want a different one, but from the low 20s to $60,000 is a new pickup truck. And a lot of small businesses need pickup trucks. A lot of families would like to update to a more fuel-efficient vehicle, maybe one for a growing family, maybe safeties are concerned. It's a disincentive to an industry that's finally showing a pulse.
So can you talk about some of the areas that you were in the budget where you expect to find efficiencies, government programs that you
We have a team from both sides of the aisle going through that budget line by line, item by item, looking for efficiencies. And you know, I can tell you the budget path we're moving on, Hargrove and Hill are together all the time. I can assure you Senator Nelson is in the room all the time, as is Senator Baumgartner. You know, we're trying really hard to have a broad-based budget without these job-killing taxes.
Can you talk a little bit about any of those efficiencies?
You know, right now the budget is getting closer and closer, and I think it would be premature for me to talk about that. But in many cases, all we're debating is the size of the increase. Now, if you go back to this tax increase, about $800 million of it goes to public employees, their contracts, their health care benefits that are going up. They're getting a bigger piece of the pie that isn't being addressed. I mean, just the health care, for example. It isn't being touched in the governor's budget. That's a tough sell. If you look at how this impacts jobs across the state, I talked to one of my friends from King County in the Senate this morning. The custom software is a huge growth industry of really good jobs in that members area. So we're going to disincentivize it by raising taxes on it. What are we going to do? Offshore it? Send it to Oregon? Now Oregon doesn't have a sales tax. Maybe Oregon wants to have our custom software business. I really hope we don't go down that road because, you know, we're a whole state, and I educate members about my part of the state, and they educate me about theirs. And, you know, taxing software, for example, isn't their road to prosperity.
Explore education for a minute. One, Governor Inslee has a $1.2 billion target for McCleary, so one thing is that even close to the majority caucus's calculation? And two, I think you were addressing this when I walked into the room.
Yeah.
I want to explore it further. Essentially, he's saying education is his top priority. McCleary is one of his top priorities. You gotta, if I gotta pick between kids and some tax exemptions, I'm gonna take kids. So throw all that at you.
Okay, John, first of all, actually you're not choosing between kids and tax cuts. You're choosing between bureaucrats and tax hikes. You know, tax hikes for bureaucrats. Well, that's a part of his budget. Tax hikes for bureaucrats. As far as education, we've seen the House Republicans come in with, you know, somewhere around 800 million. The governor is at 1.2. We're crafting where we're going to be in that mix, and I'm sure the House has their version. Isn't this a great debate? We're arguing over the size of the increase for K-12. That is a debate that I think our educators and our parents have been longing for, is how big is the increase? How big is big enough? That's a great problem to have, isn't it?
Inslee and
that
his.
really answer my question.
It does. I mean, we're in the range. We're going to be in the range, John. And we haven't finished our budget. And I'm not going to give you details of a budget that Senator Hargrove is still working with Senator Hill on. Thanks for that. You know, I'm not going to tell you the exact number because they're still crafting it. But they're going to be in the ballpark. You know, they're going to be in the game.
The Democrats in their proposals, Inslee's today, specifically the $1.2 billion increase, he's talking about $1.2 billion over maintenance. Do you make that distinction?
I think we're very much in the same game as the governor.
So, but when you talk about an increase, you're talking about increase over maintenance.
Right. I mean,
Okay.
he's saying he's got a $1.2 billion increase. The House is at 800. Frank may be above or below the governor. I don't know. But we're going to be in the game. And it's going to be bipartisan. And isn't it great to argue about the size of the increase? For the last 3 or 4 years, we've been arguing about the size of the cuts. Hey, Brad, come by. So that's a good part. But let's talk about the higher ed portion. We came out with a pretty bold statement, what we wanted to do. The governor wants to raise tuition as high as 5%. We want to cut it by 3%. Now, for those families that are struggling to keep their kids in college, kids that have a huge debt problem, we're trying to help them out. And by the way, it fixes the unfunded liability from the GET program in one biennium. So we go from a $630 million unfunded liability to positive in our guaranteed education, early tuition program. And we think we've set the bar where we want to be at -3, he's at 5. Now you talk to those families that got kids in college, getting ready for college, ask the students about the debt they're carrying, and I think we have the vehicle. So, you know, we've taken the lead there. He's following.
He said you guys, he met with leaders of the Democratic Republican leaders today. Were you in the room with him?
I met with the governor, Senator Tom and I met with the governor yesterday. And we always find something we can agree on, you know.
Is it beer?
We haven't had a beer together yet.
Did you share your details then? I was wondering if
You know,
you signed off on anything.
Any conversations I have with the governor are private. And if, you know, I respect the governor, I respect the office, and our private conversations are just that. But I always look for something I can agree with the governor on, and, you know, he finds some things he can agree with myself or Senator Tom on.
Are you still thinking that you can come up with a budget that has no tax increases or no major tax increases?
Of course. If we weren't committed to that, we wouldn't have come out so strongly about that, Eric. We're very confident we can do that.
When might we see that budget?
What's that?
When might we see that budget?
Soon, I hope.
Well,
I think, you know, Good Friday probably wouldn't be a really good day to have a rollout, but we're getting closer and closer, and those people are working really hard. The exact date, we don't have.
It'll be next week, though.
We hope it's soon. We hope it's soon.
May not be next
So
week.
you're starting waffle for next week?
You know, when we do it, we want to do it right. and we want to do it together. And we're not gonna trot something out that doesn't have broad support. And we're gonna think about the bills to implement it before we do it. So we're moving ahead. You know, this isn't a complete budget from Jay Inslee. It's not the usual thick document. It's the highs, the lows, the things he wants to showcase. He's gonna showcase tax hikes, we're not.
So you guys, your caucus, you're gonna put it, what you roll out before you roll it out, you're gonna put it to a vote in your caucus?
You know, we're going to find hopefully a lot more than 25 votes for a budget, because we believe that we want a budget that the whole state can support. So we're looking to make that budget as broad as possible, and sometimes that takes a little more time.
Will that budget include Medicaid expansion?
That's a possibility.
So it's not a sure thing.
Well, you know, there's a number of options, and members have talked about the benefits of it, and we want all of our members to be comfortable before we enact all of those pieces. You know, there's benefits to that are out there. There's also the downside, Jim. It could be, you know, Congress wakes up and realizes they're broke, and they pull back. We have a bogey for a future legislature. So we're approaching it cautiously, but we're certainly considering it to be one of the options in a no-tax budget.
But you have to book some savings from, or some revenue from that.
We're considering all of those options.
You're sounding pretty confident that you can come up with something better than the governor.
If I wasn't confident, I wouldn't be here. I believe we have a really good team on the field, and I say that really a team in a wide range of areas. And, you know, we respect the hard work that Senator Hargrove has done, Senator Nelson. We really want to work together, and we intend to keep all ahead full to work together on a budget.
Okay, there seems to me a fundamental difference in how the governor and your side are calculating budget growth. Your side is saying we got $2 billion extra dollars just because it's growing from 31 to 33. His side is saying a basic budget just by existing, by inflation and increased people it's taken care of, is already growing by a significant percent before we add the stuff on top of it. So how do you reconcile the two approaches?
Well,
Seems to me you're looking at it two
look at
different ways.
status quo, you need a lot more money. You know, status quo doesn't come cheap. If you don't dig into it, you're going to have a status quo budget. He's looking at, we're looking at $2 billion more. He thinks you need 3.2, and you just do business as usual. Business as usual is what gets you in trouble.
Can you give me the number? I'm sorry if I missed it when Andrew was asking. Where are you guys on the extra on the Cleary? I just hear so many different numbers, and I don't know where you got.
Because it isn't finalized, I'll tell you we're going to be very competitive. We're going to be in the range.
In the range, the bottom of the range is 800.
That was the lowest we've seen. The governor's at 1.2.
Yeah.
We're not sure where Speaker Chop wants to be.
Okay.
But you know, we're going to be in the game. And as I said before, Josh, isn't it great to have a debate about the size of the increase? After several years of cut, we're debating the increase. Now, when I go back to, I represent nearly 30 different school districts, and I tell you what, they go from non-high school little districts to large districts like Pasco or Clarkston or Pullman, big by my stand, and really some kids in District 81 in Spokane, and I can say, we only argued about the size of the increase. I think they're going to be pretty happy with that, because we've had to tell them some tough news for several years. That, you know, we just couldn't get there, there's got to be some cuts.
But the Joint Task Force is pretty specific about this sort of, this increase over each biennium and be on track, and you have to show the court that you're really making a real effort. And it seems like they settled on 1.4. So,
you know, the court didn't say 1.4 this biennium. The court said you have 3 bienniums to get there, and I think everybody from all four caucuses agrees. We need to make a significant down payment on that effort. And the House Republicans came out with it, Governor did, I'm sure the House Democrats will. The coalition and our friends across the aisle will come out with an increase.